11 o'clock on my end, so let's go ahead and jump in and get started. Good evening, everyone. Oh, I'm knocking down stuff. I'm sorry. Good evening. My name. Welcome to Food Truck 201. Get off the truck. I am your host, Lauren Bell. I'm the owner of Double Trouble Philly Cheesesteaks, and I own that business with my twin sister Lori and her husband Keith. So welcome. Tonight, of course, and every Monday night, joining us for this discussion is author of Food Truck 201, as well as Food Truck 101, From Beginner to Winner, putting the cart before the dog, taking it to the streets. I know I missed one. I feel like I missed one. Unsurprisingly, Bill is the founder of the most professional food truck training group on Facebook today. And we celebrate almost 30,000 members, y'all. He just got a tad bit more to go. And This group is growing every single minute. Every single minute of the day, this group is growing. And we are so thankful. We are thankful for Bill and his lovely wife, Melissa, who spend countless hours maintaining the professionalism and the integrity of this group. Without them, y'all, we wouldn't be able to keep out the foolishness and the riffraff. And so for that, we are thankful. It takes a lot to keep this group under control and with this level of integrity. With no further ado, please help me welcome to the platform, Mr. Bill Moore, and his wife, of course, Melissa in the background, keeping him straight. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, Melissa definitely keeps me straight. That's for sure.
So, go ahead, Bill. Go ahead.
No, I'm excited to get started. I know you got to jump off here in a couple of minutes to take care of some personal business. So to leave me here all by my lonesome. No,
I'll be here as much as I can. But this is a good chapter. I enjoyed this chapter because if you have a food truck or if you're working on it or whatever the stage of the thought or idea you're in, without a solid foundation, you flop. Whatever you build on, you have to have a solid foundation. And so this chapter was very good, very informative. Some of these things you may have heard before, of course, but sometimes you always have to go back to your fundamentals. Okay, you always have to go back to your basics. So many times I think we feel like we need to reinvent the wheel, and really we don't. If we just go back to the basics, steps 1, 2, 3, ABC, they always follow a sequence. I think we'll find that we're on good ground. And so no matter what stage you are in this business, you'll come to a point where there's a hole in the bucket almost, right? You either stay the same. Do we grow? Do we move? Do we add? Do we subtract? How do we focus? And so this chapter is good of just getting you in that mindset of how of building on that foundation and how to go forth from here. So Bill, I know you got some great PowerPoints and some great points to hit on. This was a good chapter. And so let's talk about foundation. Foundation, good place to start.
Well, you're right on the foundation. If you're going to build anything, you have to have a solid foundation, whether it be a business, a building, bridge, doesn't matter. It's got to have that good, strong foundation. So what I want people to think about is when they very first opened, and if you haven't opened yet, that's okay. Just think about what the challenges could be when you first get open. So somebody would like to maybe share something that happened to them, because I know we got a couple of folks that have been open here. Share something that didn't go as well as you thought it would. Just raise your hand or unmute yourself and just holler out at me. I'll tell you one of the challenges.
That's a question because you cut out. Well, what is it that we're sharing?
The biggest challenge you had when you very first got open, something that went different than you thought it would when you got open.
Oh, I have one. If nobody else, I how to hear my voice, but if somebody else has something, please go ahead.
We can listen to two. Go ahead. We'll start with you.
So one of the biggest things that went different for us is that because our mother was a caterer and because we had some knowledge around food, we thought this was easy. Who can't cook a cheesesteak, right? So we quit our jobs. Of course, we did it in good standing. We didn't just up and leave anybody high and dry. We went out right, just in case, right? Then we got out there, jumped in head first, and we found out all the things we didn't know. And so just because you have some experience with food, whether you're in a restaurant or catering, there's a whole different component to this. You know, the whole management of traveling, packing the travel. Oh, we've had some horror stories. Going early enough to get set up. Just a little bit of everything, not emptying the grease out of the fryer all the way. How many times have we had to go somewhere and clean up grease? So it was just all the little business things, the inventory, the pay. It was so many things. And so we didn't get Food Truck 101 until after. After we were up and running, after we had learned some really, really valuable life lessons. So that in a nutshell did not go how we planned it. Everything that we talked about on paper went down the toilet. And that is no joke, and I'm not exaggerating.
It can be rough when you start, that's for sure. Joanne's got her hand up. I'd love to hear what a hot dog cart person has to say.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, Joanne.
Well, one thing that I didn't forecast when I opened was the original location where I was going to be was in downtown Middletown, right off of our main street.
Right.
And it's all paid parking. And I knew I would have to pay for my parking spot. And so where I was situated, I would situate myself. I'm trying to remember. I think I got there I would get there about 11 o'clock. I try to get there earlier because I want to make sure I get that parking spot. And then I found out that no, people are getting there even earlier than me and staying there. So I would lose my spot.
Right.
And I'd have to come up with an alternative spot. But then that same spot, I found out a week into it, I had the parking authority come over to me and tell me, you've been here for 3 hours and you need to go. And so that's one of the things I didn't really fully look into was the paid meter marking is only good for 3 hours, even though on the meter it says 4 hours, but for vendors, it's only 3 hours.
Oh.
And I said, well, if I move to another spot and I put coins in the next meter, can I just stay? And he's like, no, because you are visible. You're recognizable. So no, you can't do that. We know you've been here for 3 hours. You need to go. So, and that comes down to the brick and mortars that are in the area. Yeah. That's why.
Yeah. There's always those little struggles like you faced, and then you don't even think about them because why would you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that first week I thought I was doing awesome. I mean, the first day I was open for 2 hours and I made $35. And then the next 2 days I made $65 and then $80. Right. And I thought I was doing awesome.
Right.
And then I moved to the spot I'm at now. And when I'm out there religiously, I'm bringing in $400 or $500.
Oh yeah.
So you have to do your homework.
Yeah, absolutely got to do your homework. I'll share one of mine real quick, and then we'll jump into the rest of the presentation. Thank you, Joanne.
Yeah.
And if Lauren's still there, thank you for sharing as well. One of the first challenges I had way back, this is in the early 80s, I used to get a Coca-Cola trailer. They would drop it off at the restaurant, then I would pick it up on Friday night and take it out and use it on the weekend, and then drop it back off on Sunday night so they could pick it back on Monday and do whatever they do with their Coca-Cola trailers. And back then there were blue laws, and blue laws in a lot of towns mean nothing was open on Sundays. And if it was open on Sunday, it'd be very, very short hours. Well, what I didn't realize was, same thing as Joanne, if I went out on a Sunday, I would get chased away because, no, you're not supposed to be open on Sunday, especially where I would go to set up. It was the Central Park in our little town, and the concession stands were never open. So I always think, well, if they're not open, this is perfect opportunity for me. Nope. There was a reason they weren't open. They weren't allowed to be open. So I got chased out of there on a couple of Sundays. So you've got to really expand what you think you know and build that strong foundation, because it's no fun to be told, no, you can't go do this, or having operational issues where you think that you can cook something and serve it in, say, 4 minutes, and it really takes you 8 or 10. So those are the kind of challenges that people face, and we want to kind of go through. So that's what this chapter is about. And it's actually only just these 5 pages. But I wanted to talk about just these 5 things because it is a throwback a little bit to Food Truck 101. You're going to see that here in just a second. But then it also takes you that one step farther. That's the bridge between the first book and this book. So Food Truck 101, this is the actual layout for the book. We do the research. That was chapter 1. That was the one that was entitled Why? Why do you want a food truck? What is your driving force? And part of that was doing the research. So you knew all the rules and regulations and all the laws. I would have never thought to research blue laws when I was in Kentucky back in the late 70s, early 80s. But I did learn you got to research. The second step was a menu. You got to develop a menu that makes sense to your cooking ability as well as what you can actually perform on the truck or the trailer or the hot dog cart. And then you also got to price that menu out so you can make money. And that's one of the steps that a lot of people don't do. They don't actually price the menu out until they got everything else done. And then they're talking to me about, well, I need to charge this amount of money for it. And it doesn't make sense. It's not going to generate enough cash to either pay the bills they've got, or it's going to be priced so highly that no one's going to buy it. And then where are you going to shop, and where are you going to all the other services that you need? That was always step number 3. So it's not only where am I buying my food, but I need, perhaps attorneys, accountants, repair and maintenance, all of those different kinds of services, certainly a commissary. Then where are you going to set up? Is that going to be doing daily events? Is it going to be doing rather daily locations, doing big events like fairs and festivals? Is it going to be just driving around town like a ice cream truck would do? Or is it just going to be doing private gigs and catering? So you got to know where you're going to be setting up. Then you move into the equipment. The equipment has to match what your menu is. And then at this point, that's when you spend money. Now, how many people that are in the group do you know that say, hey, we just bought a food truck, what should we sell? Hey, we just got a food trailer, what should we do? What's the first thing we should do? And they've already skipped through the first 4 steps. They're already out of their foundation. They haven't built a foundation yet. Because it's entirely possible that the equipment on the truck will not pass where their regulations are in their particular area. So that's why buying equipment is the 5th thing in line. Once you commit to buying the equipment, that's when you start to do a business plan and a marketing plan, and how am I going to get my name out there? Because now you've committed money. So now we've got that little hand at our back. We've got to go. You see, a business plan at this point becomes super easy to write because you've already done the research. You already know your menu. You already know everything. So writing a business plan at this point only takes perhaps a couple of days because you've already done all the research. Then, of course, once you got the business plan and the marketing plan set up, you're actually going to go out and market. And then the thing that I always recommend is you got to have some type of a coach, whether it's somebody you're actually paying money to, like me, somebody that's just a mentor that can answer a couple of questions every month. Our Facebook group effectively is a coach of 29,000 people. We can answer questions and help you get pointed in the right direction. But you got to have all of those elements in place. That's your foundation. Because when you have all of those elements in place and know what each of them is supposed to be doing, you start to build a business. But you take out one of those elements and you don't have a good foundation. You don't have a business. I mean, imagine taking your menu out. We have nothing to sell. Or you don't have the menu costed properly. Okay, we're going to go out of business because we're going to lose money. You don't have all the folks you need in the shopping segment there where you're doing the commissary or you're shopping around and getting the best deal for the food. You take out any one of those elements and the business isn't as strong as it could be. And that's the biggest concern that I have with anybody that is starting their food truck, their food trailer, a hot dog cart, a tent setup, is they got a strong foundation. It takes all of these steps. Now, we move into the bridge now. As you see across the top there, it says ownership is just possession of a thing. Of course, I can't remember possession of a thing. And that's all that it is. It doesn't make you any better than anybody else, because there's a whole bunch of people that own a food truck or a food trailer that are on the verge of selling, that are not making any money, that are posting in our group they've been open for 3 years and haven't paid themselves anything. They own a thing. They don't own a business. So don't get wrapped up in, I own a business. No. You want to be a leader of a profitable business. So you got to set your very first goal, once you get those doors open, is to turn yourself into a leader. And that's a great leader. And it doesn't matter whether you want to have 10 trucks or you just want to have one really profitable truck. You still got to be the leader of that truck. You know, Lauren and Lori's goal is to get off of the truck and let other folks run it for them. But you got to be a good leader, so that those folks that are going to be running it for you have someone to turn to, have someone to support them. And if you want to stay on the truck and just run it with you and 2 other people, you still got to be the leader. You're the one in charge. Those other folks look up to you for the answers. So here's some traits of a good leader. A good leader is a good listener. And what that means is you shut up and listen to the other people when they come to you with problems. They come to you with complaints. Hopefully they come to you from time to time with solutions as well, but you got to shut up and listen to those people. Listen to your people, because you hired them and they deserve to be heard. And also, being a good listener is not just sitting there quietly. It's also asking questions so that you understand what they're trying to communicate to you. And you don't say anything else until you have repeated back what they have stated to you in a manner that they say, yep, you understand what I'm talking about. Then you can start to have that conversation and discuss and make changes or improvements or handle whatever issue they're bringing to you. But you got to be a good listener. You've got to be a constant learner. It's one of the things we talked about last week, is the difference in experience and expertise. Experience is time and position. That's all that it is. You accumulate that whether you do great or you do poor. But if you want to have expertise, you've got to constantly be challenging yourself to learn new things. I can honestly say, out of all the different restaurant companies that I've worked for, been a franchise for, been a franchisee of, all of that is experience that has brought me to where I am today. I wouldn't be probably as good as I am if I'd only worked for one company. If I'd only stayed with one company for 30 years, I'd have a whole bunch of experience, but not a whole lot of expertise. So you've got to be a constant learner. And it's not just about the business. You can also learn about things to do that are kind of just outside of your business. For example, learning how to be a good leader, there's a ton of books on it. They have nothing to do with food service, but they do have to do with helping you to hone your skills as a leader. There's seminars you can take. There's classes in college and community colleges. There's a ton of stuff online. Pick somebody that speaks to you and then learn those skills. A good leader is service driven. Now, this word breaks people up. It just tears them up when I use it. You are a servant to your employees. You are a servant to your business. And people, I'm not a servant to anybody. It's not the slave days. It's not Civil War. I'm not a servant to anybody. That's not what I mean. A servant to your people means you're there for them when they need you. It means that you're the resource. You're able to guide them and teach them and move them in the right directions. You are serving their ability to be a better employee. You're serving their ability to be a better person for your business, and hopefully just be a better person in general. So you're teaching them. And the only way that you can teach them is to be humble about it and show them how to do things right. And when you have the proper attitude and understand you're service driven, you are helping your people, you're helping your business. So don't get too hung up on the words that we choose, that you've got to help your people. You're a resource for them. You got to be accountable. And accountability means that you take responsibility when you mess up things. But you also got to set goals so that you'll have a target to work towards and be accountable towards your goals. One of the things that I learned over the years is I can be very unemotional when things happen. Doesn't matter how bad things are going on the shift. I don't react. I handle whatever needs to be handled. But I have a very short tolerance for when people don't participate the way they should be. One of the restaurants I ran, we were just absolutely getting slammed. It was a 300-seat restaurant, and we had about 400 people in the restaurant. We had 300 eating and 100 people wanting to eat. And the service was not going well at all. Some of the servers were kind of messing up. The kitchen wasn't getting the food out quick enough. We had one of those ticket wheels, and if you know what that is, it's a wheel that holds about 20 tickets, and you spin it as you move a ticket. Well, we were backed up. We couldn't even hang all the tickets. They were laying on the counter. They were on the wheel. Every time we set up a plate of food, it would blow the tickets off. They were on the counter. It was a chaotic mess. And it didn't need to be, because there was enough people there to handle it. It's that one person was not pulling their weight, not trying at all. And I got to the point where this person needs to go because they're the ones that are creating the bottleneck. So I asked them to leave. You're not pulling your weight. You just need to go ahead and go. They didn't want to go. Are you firing me? No, I'm asking you to leave because you're in the way right now. And that's pretty much how I said it. And of course, being challenged, they had to go off and show that their little teenage manhood was being threatened, and they're, trying to bully and fight and all that. And I'm like, dude, you can leave or I can call the police and have you thrown out. Which do you want to do? Because it doesn't matter to me, but you're in the way right now. And it probably wasn't the best way to handle it because, people are able to hear that conversation, but he needed to go. And eventually he did finally leave the restaurant. We got things under control and were able to serve everybody. But you got to understand your impact on people. You have to be accountable to them. I could have handled that probably better if I'd have thought ahead quicker and seen where the problem was before it got completely out of hand. So you have to be accountable to your own standards. And the standards are all the way down to, can I get every single sandwich out in a certain amount of time? And then if you don't get them out the way you expect, how can I improve on this situation? How can I make it better for the employees so that they can achieve what I expect them to achieve? You have to stay focused. You have to stay focused on the task at hand. You can't be the dog that runs around and sees a squirrel over here and then sees a shiny object over here and doesn't know where to go. You have to be focused on the task at hand. You have to have those goals that I talked about in the accountability, and then you have to be focused on that goal. And you need to establish the goals for everybody that works for you. And then keep them focused on what's important, what's in front of them at that particular moment. Waiting on a guest that walks up, cooking whatever food you need to have cooked, or is it going out and be focused on your social media and your marketing? But you got to have that singular focus on every task that you're doing. Don't allow yourself to surf when you decide to get on and do your social media. Empathetic and compassionate. And this is kind of what I was alluding to under the accountability as well. Sometimes you got to be empathetic, and then sometimes you got to be compassionate, and they are two different things. Empathy means you understand how somebody else feels. Doesn't mean you agree with how they feel. It just means you understand why they feel the way that they do. Compassionate means that you understand what they're going through and then are willing to help them get through that, or to make adjustments in something that will help them get through whatever's going on. I'll give you another example. Same restaurant, actually. There was a super busy Friday night coming up, and we used to do a seafood bar, and we would be super busy on those seafood bar nights. And it was all you can eat, crab legs and that kind of thing. So we knew we would be busy. I had a server come in that was starting to feel a little bit under the weather. And she was, Bill, I really need to go home as soon as possible. She said, I'll try to hang out as long as I can. You know, I'll try and get you through the dinner, but please, you know, send me home as soon as you can. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I got to get through dinner, and it's going to take a certain number of servers. Otherwise, you know, it's just going to be a chaotic mess. And then all the people that want to come here and eat will be able to eat. But then I also had to be compassionate, because if she's not feeling well, she's not going to perform well. She's not going to be able to handle the job, which means it hurts her tips. You know, it just hurts everybody. So I had to make that decision of, okay, I'm going to sacrifice a little bit on the business to help her, to get her out of here quicker, to get her home when she can take care of herself. That's being compassionate. Now, what that got me in the future was a unbelievably loyal employee, because she knew that Friday night was not the night for me to be sending her home early, but I did it anyway because she needed it. I was compassionate to her needs. And then she repaid that to me many times over. Whenever I would need somebody to come in because someone else had called off, I'd call her up. Yes, Bill, I'll be right there. Hey, I need somebody to stay till closing because, you know, we're missing a server. Not a problem, Bill, I got you. So you can win people over by being compassionate and understanding what they're going through. And then the last tip there is to be present. I talk about this from time to time on the podcast, and I say it sometimes in other presentations. Being present means that your hands are at the exact same place your mind is. And that is really, really tough for people, because when you're working on a food truck, you're thinking about, oh my goodness, I got to pay the bill. Did I turn the coffee pot off? You know, I got to pick the kids up at 3. You know, oh, what am I going to cook for dinner tonight? You know, what are we doing tomorrow morning for breakfast? You're thinking about everything except what's in front of you, which is the food truck. And I got to prep lettuce, got to cut tomatoes, got to cut onions. You're not thinking about those things. You're wandering off. And then when you get home and you're sitting down to dinner with the family, now you're wandering off on, I got to place that order tomorrow. I got that big catering coming up. How am I going to survive that big catering? You know, I'm not hitting my sales goal. How do I get more people in here? So you're not present with your family. So nobody wins anything. The food truck doesn't win because your mind's off somewhere else. When you're home, your mind's somewhere else on the food truck and your family's not winning. So be present wherever you're at. Put your mind where your hands are, where your body is, and stay there. Set aside the time to be focused on the food truck, and then set aside the time to be focused on the family or your social life or whatever it is that is not a part of the food truck. When I learned that, my whole outlook on life just totally changed. Because I used to grumble all the time. You know, if my employees would do just a little bit better, we could hit our sales goals. If they would just do a little bit more, I could, you know, it was always complaining about something. Whether I was at home or I was at work. And if I was at work, it's like, oh, God, you know, what am I going to do? We got an electric bill coming up and I'm not generating enough sales. How am I going to pay this electric bill? You know, how am I going to pay the rent? You know, all of those worries don't do any good when you're at your business. And then being worried about the business doesn't do your family any good when you're at home. And then I had somebody just sit me down and tell me, you've got to put your mind where your body is. It's the way he phrased it. He said, because you're going to work yourself into the ground and you're not going to be one iota more happy then than you are right now because your mind is not on what you're doing. And I took that to heart and started to work on every time I'd find my mind wandering. If I was at work, you know, I'm prepping lettuce and I'm starting to think about something else. I get right back onto the lettuce. How fast can I do this? How quickly can I get through this case of lettuce? How quickly can I get through the onions? And it got to the point where I knew exactly where I needed to be with each product I had to do any kind of prep work for. And then I would pay attention to the details when guests would come in. Instead of, welcome, can I take your order, please? Hey, how you doing today? Yeah, and I would pay attention. I haven't seen you in a couple of days. Everything okay? Yeah. You came in yesterday. How was that burger you had yesterday? You remember the details. You talk to people and you're present with them instead of focused on anything else. So be present. All right. Last little thing I want to point out before we go into the question and answer, and you guys can certainly continue to type things in the chat, and I'll get to all the questions in a moment. If you want to improve the organization, which would be your food truck, you have to improve yourself. And then the organization gets pulled up with you.